Hey guys, we're back. We had a little bit of a sabbatical over the summer, as we're entitled to, and as we should do to recharge the energy. But we have been paying attention to what's been going on in Ireland. In the Citizens Assembly has been rocking on, and we've just come off one of the first meetings in September, and some controversial stuff in that. And so today I'm super excited because we have a guy that is a friend, and he's one of the most knowledgeable people in this Irish cannabis scene, and I'm delighted to have him on to get a little bit of his let him drop a few pearls our way, and see what we can find out more about the Irish cannabis situation. I want to welcome Graham De Barra. Has been around the situation, the scene since 2013. The big bill that Luke put through, Ming, Flanagan, went into the Parliament, the Dáil, and we had that big moment where we believed that this could be possible, that we can get a bill through the Dáil. So it didn't happen, and that's why we find ourselves in this current situation where we're waiting on a citizen assembly to make recommendations that hopefully in 2024, next year, they will see some light of day, that politicians will pay attention to. We're hoping, and I feel confident that things have to change, because what we have to do, what the Citizen Assembly will do, is it'll just remove it'll make it easier for politicians who don't really have they're not able to do it on their own. So I'd like to please welcome Graham De Barra. How you doing, Graham?
Hey, Stephen. Thanks for having me, man. How are you?
That's great.
You going well with your treatment and stuff? The MS, it's okay?
Yeah. I'm over here in Barcelona.
You look well.
I'm over here in Barcelona, man. So I'm able to grow my couple of plants out, and I'm able to self-medicate. And that's some of the stuff that we need to try and get going in Ireland,
Yeah. Developing the green thumb, becoming self-sustainable, man. It's not all about the clubs. You can grow your own as well out in Spain. People forget. So you can have 4 plants, right?
5, I think, legally.
5. How many do you have? You have to play count there for a second.
but honestly, that's almost sufficient for me for the year. I just finished a crop, and it's like, what do I need more than that? I can go to the club if I want to, but I've got pretty much my year's medicine, and the cost is what the same, a couple of
nothing on cents on the gram, man. The way the plant should be. It should be cheap. It should be affordable. It should be accessible. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. Your man Bubble Man, and they're envisioning a world where a kilo will be $100, so people can go and make their own hash at high quality hash without having to rely on 60, 70 euro for a gram of this live resin, hash resin. And that's really a world that it already exists in some countries. Like if you look at Uruguay, for example, the cost per ounce there, it's something like, I think it's $10 or less, or maybe it's $5. And they have clubs like in Spain, but they've gone the opposite direction of the US. They've said, let's treat this like any other herb. You're getting a bag of spuds in the morning, some broccoli, some greens, some fruits, and your bag of cannabis, and you can do what you want.
I love Uruguay, man. I love Uruguay. I love
great place.
They did it first, and people always kind of forget that,
Yeah, they were the first country.
Yeah, people always referring to Canada all the time, but Uruguay they kept their data, and I love what Uruguay are doing. I met the lady who runs the CSC in Montevideo.
I'm so jealous.
They are very, very cool.
I couldn't make it out.
Very cool lady, and but she's part of the warrior attitude that the Uruguayans have. And I said to her, and so she was kind of at Spanibus in the big auditorium with a lot of people in the room.
Main stage, right? Yeah.
No, she was just in the crowd, but she spoke up.
Uruguayans, they take no shit, man.
You weren't going to keep this lady quiet. And the talk was interesting, because the talk was about the UN and about the directives of the UN that were coming down, and the idea that there's only a very small, you really don't perceive this a lot of the time, that there's a very small little group of people. I think it's like 11 people that are behind a lot of the UN directives, that is kind of laying down the laws on top of cannabis, and how that's going out into the world. And she was getting pretty animated and going, forget the UN, forget your law, and we just did it. And that's what Uruguay, she just said.
Totally, man, 100%. And if you look at the current emerging, I suppose, legislation or movement within the UN. It's Bolivia and Colombia with the right to grow and cultivate coca from the coca plant. And again, there was some derogations, like some people disagreed. The Netherlands, the UK, I think Ireland voted against them exiting and re-entering the treaty, minus the exclusion of their right, traditional indigenous right to this plant. 13 countries, Netherlands, I think last week, even though this vote took place 10 years ago, on record, the Netherlands took back their position. They said, actually, we realize now after 10 years of seeing what they're doing out there, they're not burning the rainforest, they're not poisoning the crops like the US, sending planes over Mexico and parts of Colombia to try and eradicate the coca plant. It can never be eradicated. These guys have a right to it. They use it for a lot of different ailments, like just common stuff, like just immuno booster and different things like that.
For altitude sickness and
altitude sickness, which you need it as a tourist if you're ever in these mountainous regions, like Bogota. I was there last year. It's like 10,000 feet or meters in the sky, and you have stores, you have farmers markets full of coca leaf. So I drink it now every day. It's part of my diet. Like if I'm after a flight, I'll drink a cup of tea of coca leaf. And all I say is it's not coffee. Like I'm after a couple of cups of coffee today. It's not like that. You don't have that boost of energy. You just more like it reduces that like burnout from a flight or that kind of a jet lag from a flight and just puts you back to normal. That's all it does. And it's not high. It's not stimulating whatsoever.
And how
beautiful
is it
plant.
A cocoa coffee or
no tea. So it's actually it's mixed with a couple of blended products. So there's ginger in it, and there's another plant called moranga, which they grow in, I think, up in the Coca region of Colombia, where they grow the cacao, coca, moranga, ginger, and all this. So it's like a blend. And I do have the coca leaf as well, but I like the blend because I just like to have a little bit of, you can put a spoon of honey in there as well if you want. It's beautiful. It's great. All you want is one cup. That's it.
This is plant medicine, dude. It is amazing.
I'm learning. They know everything out there, man. They know everything. I just resort to them. I ask them, what's the story here? What do I need? They have sprays, they have oils, ointments, all different stuff, lip balms, all made out of coca. I'm like, okay, give it to me.
So anyway, we'll bring you back. I'm going to bring you back from the beautiful climbs of Bolivian mountains back to our own lovely island and Ireland. So I said at the top. So you've in my knowledge is that since 2013 was Luke Flanagan's main bill that he tried to get in the door, and you were very much part of that campaign. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Before I do, I'd like to dedicate this episode to a fabulous woman called Godin. And Godin ran Utopia Nation in Barrack Street in Cork. And she currently is on stage 4 cancer. I don't think she's doing very well. She was an innovator. She is an innovator. I mean, she's still with us. She's still putting up a fight. She really taught me a lot. A lot of activists kind of circulated around this. It was a grow shop by day, and it was a pole dancing studio by night. And so she really taught me like the lessons of like my body, my choice, all these like values, liberal ideals. Like she's from Colorado originally. So she was like completely on the spectrum of one extreme. And just growing up, I used to get my grow equipment there during leaving cert. I'd leave the exam hall, I'd get on my motorbike in Utopia Nation, I'd get a bag of soil, clip it to the back of the monkey straps. I'd go back to my house, my conservatory, hope no one notices, and I'd start planting out everything. And they were just an incredible help. Like I wouldn't always agree with her on stuff, but we'd have these lovely arguments, like, and I mean argument in a good way, where, we'd come around to each other's opinion and really just see her perspective on things. Like she was full of life. She gets a lot of shit done, and she ran for the local elections like 2014, and I helped her with that, like little seeds from my auto-flowering summer that the previous summer, and just writing Ella #1, Brian Houlihan #2, and giving them around the streets of Cork. And so they have thoughts and meditations with Ella Godin, and I hope that she pulls through. And she left a lot of legacy in Ireland and in Cork in particular. So leading up to that, then we used to meet up at Utopia Nation, meet a lot of people, and just discuss. We put Facebook posts, we're going to be here this time, this day, if you want to come help out. And a lot of people would actually. It's how I met a lot of people, like Martin came through there, Arua came through, the Richie, Sheehy. Yeah. So leading up then, we had a protest in Cork. Legalised Cannabis Ireland was her name at the time. And Ming Flanagan just appears. You know, he didn't say anything. He doesn't respond to our messages, but he just turns up. And I'm like, you know, I'm like 19 at the time, and I just like completely just starstruck, you know, I'm just like, oh, hi, Ming. And I just couldn't communicate, you know, I went silent, and I said, oh, next time I see that guy, I can't just waste an opportunity. Like, he wanted to talk. And anyway, we keep bumping into each other. I've been out to his place in Brussels a couple of times and helped him a few different areas on policy work out in the EU Parliament. But yeah, bring him back to the bill in the Dáil. I was in Galway, in NUI Galway, setting up another chapter of Students for Sensible Drug Policy.
There you go.
Ming had an office in Dublin where he was recruiting some people to help draft the law. What would be the best thing? Oh, Colorado was popping at the time. Let's look at Colorado. So we're doing all these events and conferences and stuff, and just trying to put into a piece of paper or legislation what. So we kind of really took America's and we kind of applied it to Ireland. It probably wasn't the best format for Irish common law legislation, but look, we tried and it failed. But I suppose
Colorado had the similarities. It had the demographic similarities, the population. It had there is some commonality, let's say, between that state and Ireland, and they went first, no?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, population-wise, Ming would always make this argument that whatever they're making in Colorado, which I think was surplus of $1 billion in the first year, whatever it was, he would say this is the value of the Irish industry. I mean, we were again just like amazed. €1 billion. How can this plant be worth €1 billion and bring all these jobs? Very convincing stuff, you know, and appealing to the sensibilities of Ireland and the people who are in Parliament. They want to hear these. It's not necessarily my argument, but they want to hear these numbers. And so Ming really just like fired it. What was like, people criticized him at the time, like they were like, well, we should focus on medical, you're going full rec, why don't we start with medical? Colorado started with medical and then they went full rec. That's a strategy decision, and Ming would justify that as he wanted to put forward the best argument for cannabis reform, which he believes is full legalization for recreation and medical under that. And he wanted to put on record, he wanted there to be the first Dáil record of people voting against it. And now you are informed as a voter in his constituency and all over Ireland, who are the parties for it and who are the parties against it. No surprise, I think 8 people voted for it, and you know, the other 130 odd people or whatever voted against it. Yeah. At least we know, man. At least we knew the position, where it was very difficult to get this out of the likes of Sinn Féin and Labour. We couldn't get their position. So every time there was an election coming up, we'd get little bits here and there, but we would never know the party position on cannabis reform. And so he was the guy who put that on record for the first time. So, you know, I think no matter what you look back, it was good.
I think that has existed. There's been a kind of hidden kind of world behind people's attitudes to cannabis in Ireland for so long. But the decades after that is the same thing. And only now, this Citizens Assembly, once it's arrived, we're beginning to see what you're doing. Like, that's brilliant what Luke was doing there. But what you're beginning to see is people are attaching themselves to their ideas. And so they have to go public. And so we have the police embarrassing themselves. We have the legal industry, the medical industry. There's shocking stuff going on. But they have kind of hidden away in that decade since 2013. If kind of those attitudes are just buried away.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're growing as a movement. You know, people are becoming louder. Like, everyone I meet, I'm always talking about cannabis with them. You know, it's literally, met a guy from Argentina on the beach there earlier, and I'm like, oh, you're from Buenos Aires, so you can just get a ferry for 1 hour away and you're in Uruguay, you're in a legal jurisdiction. And immediately it's a commonality. Like, immediately people get to link up and connect over this wonderful plant. And in Ireland, we're beginning to see this again, like a lot of events, and shout out to Martin's World for hosting a lot of them. And there's obviously a lot of underground ones that probably don't want to mention, but they're there. We recognize it, and we, you know, it's great. And if you look at the UK, for example, similar to us really in the laws and the climate and all the problems that we have and that they have, we share a lot of it. But they've some of the best, the dankest weed, you know, Dank of England, and all these coffee shops, social clubs popping up. And they're just doing it, man. They're not waiting for any citizens' assembly or parliament in Westminster to tell them you're allowed to go cultivate and have a club. They're just doing it. That's a great mentality to have, you know.
But they have, in the realities of the situation, is that they have actually properly legalized for patients. The medical cannabis has been properly legalized in the UK, like since 2018. And
depends what you think of as a proper legalization. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah,
they have a private prescription, a private industry, right? So if you can afford private GP visits, private consultants, and recurring prescriptions, right? This isn't free. Ireland went to this kind of very compassionate, we'll sort everyone out under the drugs payment scheme. That turns out that's a lot slower. There's only what 50 odd, maybe more, 50 odd patients.
And that's the shocking.
That's shocking.
Not
that's
fit
shocking.
for purpose.
No, it's not.
And we talked about demographics before. Denmark has the exact same demographics as Ireland. Exact same. I mean, these are direct comparisons, and this one's in the EU, Denmark, and they have a really similar medical cannabis access program, except
it's doing well, yeah.
No, but except they include chronic pain on, and so pain is a feature of them. But they have 3,000 people on theirs.
They are a major producer as well. I think there's a company up there from Copenhagen or something, and again, Ireland is relying on the scraps that Europe is giving it. So we can't increase our public program, even though it's good for some patients who are on the track. It's getting paid for those 50 odd patients. Where's the cannabis coming from? It's coming from Bedrocan in the Netherlands, and every single EU country is knocking on the door of Transvaal Pharmacy in The Hague. Give us everything you got. They're sold out. They have to build up another facility. I think the last time I was in Bedrocan up in Groningen in North Netherlands, they were already building another facility. They're asking me if I wanted to set up a facility in Ireland, and they would take 51% stake and call it Bedrocan Sister or something like that. And I think they're setting one up around it. So it's like, this can't come fast enough for patients. We need to grow, we need to cultivate. And Portugal, interestingly enough, have the most medical cannabis producing facilities, like 4,000, 5,000 meter squared warehouses, kind of hybrid greenhouses, we'll say high spec greenhouses, where they're using the sun complemented with supplemental LED lighting. And that's good. So, that's one country that's also similar to Ireland, kind of, Catholic on the fringes of Europe.
Never really sorted it out. And the other thing about Portugal that I always like to remind people is that Portugal went through the same trauma that is dominating our assembly at the moment, which is the trauma of heroin in the 80s and 90s heroin epidemics. And that was really the basis for their for this magical Portuguese law that came in. It's a reactionary law to a desperate situation of heroin addiction on the streets of Lisbon. And it's like we have the same in Spain, in Bilbao. It's always the same city. It's the port cities. It's Bilbao, it's Dublin, it's Liverpool, it's Glasgow. All of them got wiped out at the same time. The poppies came, and it came out of, obviously it only comes from one place, heroin. And so
Afghanistan,
and so the thing is that that's what I feel, that the Portuguese one we look to it. I'm going to ask you to tell me about it, because you've been really underneath the hood of the Portuguese model. So we want to know.
I've been coming here since I was a criança, since I was a kid. My mom used to bring us out to south of Portugal, and I suppose I'm kind of like my second home at the moment. It was a response, as you say, to the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Sharing needles amongst the injecting population was the highest in all of EU. So they got a doctor, Dr. João Goulão, who was a GP family doctor at the Algarve, and he was a mayor down there as well. So he was involved in politics. They got him to set up a committee of experts, medical experts. What's the best response? And the first thing was recommending move it away from justice, put it into health. And by every literal meaning of that, like literally, it never goes to the criminal justice system. So even if someone is harassed and arrested or blah, 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 they're brought into a kind of optional dissuasion committee, which they can accept advice, or they don't even have to turn up if they don't want to. It's like, it's not forced on them. That said, even though it did legalize a 10-day supply of cannabis, LSD, heroin, all these drugs, the way in which the law was written, it was meant to include homegrown. First of all, that was scrapped last minute. So that would have been a massive change. Imagine Portugal today if they had homegrown back in 2001. It would be where Spain is now, or even above that. But it didn't do that. It didn't complete the whole picture that it was setting out, that the recommendations from those doctors gave. That was the first thing. The second thing was they did still leave it one foot in the criminal justice system, because the 10-day supply is interpreted as basically a number of doses. So you could consider like, say, 0.5 gram as a dose or something like that. So in reality, it's like, it's not that much that you're allowed to possess. Beyond the 10 days, they're going to, the law assumes that you're a drug dealer. So if you have, you know, say 50 grams instead of 49 grams or whatever the cutoff point, I think it's actually like 10 or 15 grams. But you're now all of a sudden you're looking at supply charges and you're back in court again. But like most cannabis users are going to have more than 10 grams on them sometimes, right? Of course. And now it's interesting. They brought in a new law last month. So they're trying to correct all the mistakes of the last law from 15 years ago, whatever, 20 years ago. And they're now saying that the onus is on the police to prove that someone is dealing, even in instances where people have above the 10-day supply. So there's no point should the law assume, no matter how much possession you have, the police need to prove where's the customers, where's the money, where's the tick list, where's the distribution network, where's the boats and the planes and all. I mean, these are the people they should be looking after, not the people with 10 grams, 15 grams. So they're trying to really cut that lower threshold and really try and focus on the top. And decriminalization has really just moved resources around. Police are just looking more, they're patrolling more of the ocean, the sea. Like if you consider Portugal, it's actually one of the largest territories in the world. If you include their oceans, which is under their control, obviously, it extends to the Azores. So you have Portugal all the way to the Azores. That's all Portuguese territory.
Yeah.
So they have the Maritime Institute based in Lisbon, which was actually headed by, I think it was a Cork man, Michael O'Sullivan. He gave a presentation, he gave a talk at the last Citizens Assembly, really outed himself as a total corrupt idiot. And again, it comes back to like, police do have a major stake in this war on drugs, and they're playing these games, going up and down the ocean. Oh, we found another one. Oh, look, we found another one. Let's get some photos. But you don't know about the boat that just came past. Like maybe that's a decoy. So they're throwing up 1 kilo or 10 kilos, but there's like 100 kilos coming behind them. And they're making a dent on this, but it's funding their institute. It's funding their promotions. It's giving them more money, more boats, more weapons, more whatever.
We had him, Michael O'Sullivan, and we had another guy declare that the system is working, and you go, well,
Bobby Smith, Dr. Bobby Smith.
The system is working for who?
Grand, yeah. So let's just go home, lads. There's no point having a citizens' assembly. Actually, you're all just fooled. We just brought you out here for a cup of tea and a sandwich.
The problem that it was chaotic consumers was the kind of out of that last weekend. The chaotic.
The consumers are to blame, Stephen. You know, because they're the ones they're bringing the cartels here. They're the ones, you know, governing heroin out with the Taliban. They're conspiring with all these people. No, the consumer makes a decision, and if you give the consumer the right tools to make a right decision, like a regulated product from this region, local, has these contents, this cannabinoid content, this water activity, like they do in New York State, like they do in Colorado, then let the consumer make an informed decision, and you can point fingers later. But don't be doing it when your only decision is a bag of weed or a bag of weed. What the hell kind of choice is that?
And would it be correct in your experience that I had Laura Ramos on a talk here once?
Great, yeah, she's wonderful, journalist.
Yeah, and she was saying that and I have this impression a lot. I've lived in Holland for quite a few years, and that people have an impression that these countries, these cultures, are inherently kind of into cannabis, when really it's not the case. So Laura would say that the Portuguese are not. I mean, they're quite centrist kind of culture, and they're not crazy about cannabis, are they?
You kind of have two Portugals the way you have two Irelands. You have the ruling class and you have the people. So generally people are very private here. Like they would never get involved in your business. Like even if you're smoking a joint on the street, very rarely will someone really look at you. Like they don't care, because that's just not it. Why would they get involved in your life? Like they've gone through a dictatorship and a recent revolution in 1974, which meant that they become a democracy for the first time, a lot younger than Ireland, by the way. And that's still in their memory. That's a recent memory of their parents or the generation that's just gone. So the idea of telling other people what to do, that's a no-no. You definitely don't go around in Portugal getting into people's business. But you do have this old hierarchy or ruling class, at least like we have, and they're very anti-cannabis. And I don't understand where it's coming from, because they're the same people that chain smoke cigarettes and drink coffee in the morning.
Exactly.
but they don't see, like, the cafes here are the pubs. So in Portugal, you have alcohol sold as soon as a cafe opens, and that's 5:30 in the morning for the farmers, right? So you have alcohol consumed at 5:30 and people driving.
They call them carajillos in Spain.
Carajillos, yeah.
Yeah. So all your, I'm a big fan of them. But
oh man,
yeah,
I love it. I mean, these are the people who they're feeding us, right? They're supplying the food on the shelves.
Keeping the cities clean and keeping everything operating and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and giving business back to the cafe in the morning. They're there. It's a very social culture, right? You're out all the time. But it's just interesting how alcohol is sold. I don't know why I got to that point, but in Ireland, you can't have a drink before 12 o'clock. You can't buy a bottle of wine. And so you could say Portugal, maybe there is an element of anti-cannabis. They haven't got their industry sorted out, and decriminalization is a half measure. It hasn't done a whole lot for quality, but it has maybe resulted in less people being criminalized, which is definitely a good step. But again, we're talking about 20 years ago, man. Like, we shouldn't be comparing about that, really. What we're talking today is Malta, like an island like Ireland that have legalized, like, nationally.
In the EU.
In the EU, thank you. And this year or next year, they're going to open, I think they've given 4 licenses already.
Yeah.
Which is a good start, but it's not fast
pretty
enough.
Pretty restrictive. They're putting big numbers on the members. There's a couple of really, like, a couple of conditions are quite restrictive, but
it depends where your category. So if you're between 0 and 50 members, you basically it's almost free. Like, you're basically friends, or you're like a little community. But if you're 500,
by the way, which is the essence of the social.
I think that's mostly what you want, is like a small, many of them, but small, like the local cafe. Probably it's 50 people going there, because the next cafe is in another parish or another neighborhood. And even though it's close, it's like, that's theirs, this is ours. And it's a lot of sense of community and just pride and stuff into having your own local, right? You could have that with your social club. 50 people, 100 people is enough.
The rest of our viewers, the social clubs are an incredible innovation. And Uruguay has gone back to social clubs after legalizing. They went, okay, so how do we manage our cannabis? We go back to the social club model. Social club model is a model. It's established. It's a not for profit. It's all of the right things. There's nothing that you can say negative about the social club model, in my opinion. But I don't believe where do you put holes in a social club model? And we should have it instead, all those pubs that are doing nothing in Ireland, and there should be, so we should have social clubs. It's just a
lot of them closed down and stuff during COVID. A lot of empty, vacant buildings there, in many parts of the towns and villages across Ireland. I was doing a lot of cycling during the COVID and seeing these places, and it's a shame. It's like, wow, that could be a prime location. Parking is included. They have the running water. They have electricity. Like, it's plugged in. Like, bedrooms upstairs.
The change of use. Usually,
take Torna. Like, it's our public house. That's where we have everything already, right? We have the fireplace, and it's just, instead of collaborating over, the sensory depriving substance, we can collaborate and talk over and socialize over cannabis.
The thing that has to come first for that, though, really is right to grow, to make the social club possible. I mean, it's encouraging to see it's in everything. We've got movements in Czech Republic, we've got movements in Germany, we've got movements everywhere, and they're all Germany. And they're all including right to grow for personal social clubs. And so that's why we have to believe that this is a matter of when.
But it's important, Stephen, to get to on that point, because there's a lot of people, and they come to this issue and they believe in this kind of incrementalism. Like, yeah, look, we'll accept, like, I'm not negotiating on this. Like, I'm not negotiating on human rights. Like, it's either it's a right or it's not a right. For me, it's black or white. It's a zero-sum game. Yeah. It's not, oh, give me an allowance of 5 grams. Lads, it's an allowance of 5 grams. Let's just all get behind it. No, I'm not accepting an allowance of 5 grams. In New York State, you can walk around with 84 grams in your pocket and you can have 6 plants. And that's not including what you have in your home. You can have another 50, I think it's another 20 or 50 grams of extracts. So that's even a purer form. And you can have your flower, and you can have, and then at your home, you can have a higher threshold, because that's like your home. That's your private residence. No one should be coming in and telling you what you can do in your private residence. So we're here negotiating over 5. What's the allowance? Is it 5 grams? Is it 10 grams? Is it 4 plants? That's bullshit. Like, we should be on the point. We're removing cannabis, we're removing drugs from the misuse of drugs. We're changing it, we're repealing it, and we're moving it to either health or social. Like, it should never have been put under the criminal justice system. And when you remove that, there should be no criminalizing. Even if you are over 84 grams in New York, you're still not going to jail. So, you know, this negotiating on human rights, we should accept 5 grams, whatever they give us, we'll take it. Ask for more and we can compromise later, but don't be at the starting outset asking for decriminalization, asking for 5 gram limit or whatever it is that Gino Kinney's bill and what, you know, the Citizens Assembly has now shown. The appetite is there to talk about regulation. So that should be the point that should have been focused on from the beginning. They didn't realize that people would be giving out about it. All the submissions were talking about regulation. And then in September, the last meeting, they had to talk about regulation, which I thought was good. It was definitely a good, we had Crown there, we had Paula, we had the youth workers against prohibition, some really good groups. And I'm happy that we're well represented now, you know, and these are professionals, they work in the field. Like your man talking, Graham from Crown is a nurse, right? He works in a hospital setting.
The lady from Solace was very impressive as well.
Yeah.
People who are front facing, they're
coming out.
Yeah, they're there every day. They're waking up and seeing the problem right there. So they're the people we need to be leading legislative change.
And to grow is important. Yeah, that's always going to be included there. And I don't see a threshold on that.
I don't want to completely leave Portugal because it comes up so big in this. So what is your final impressions of the Portuguese model as it's known?
I think you have to take it as a whole. Like with decriminalization, to be fair, harm reduction has kind of emerged, and they have drug consumption, a massive drug consumption room in Lisbon, which I visited when they opened a couple of years ago. And I asked them, you know, okay, so they have like kind of a housing hostel, laundrette, shower facility, like it's really a cafe, you know, a smoking area where people smoke hash, you know, before they're waiting to come in to either inject or shoot, whatever they want. So it's like, it's a lot of drugs that you can use there. It's not just drug injecting heroin like in Ireland. They're just trying to legislate for drug injections centers, whereas these are drug consumption rooms. So it's anything in this facility is allowed, and it's under medical supervision. So I had to, like, I'm seeing people smoking crack. I'm seeing there's actually nobody injecting. So they misdesigned it because the trend has moved since they designed the drug consumption around the injection of heroin. Heroin has kind of disappeared, and it's much more towards crack cocaine and smoking of crack cocaine. So they have a small smoking area that now most clients go there, and then they have a massive heroin injection booths, maybe 20 of them, and I have never seen anybody in those. So it's about really like designing it from the start about what is it that you're trying to resolve. If you're trying to resolve a heroin epidemic of the 80s, you're 40 years too late.
Yeah. So
you can't really be just focused on that. You need to also think about what's happening in Ireland, like Portugal, crack cocaine is, but you had to have a smoking provision allowed in there. And when I asked the question, I said to them, okay, so you're supervising, they're getting clean apparatus, they're you know, you're having locks on site. This is all great. But I said, at what point should you just supply them the quality assured medicine or drug? And the nurse turned around and he said, I agree with you. He said, that's the next step. And we need to start supplying directly to the user, because otherwise they're going back out on the streets. And even under decriminalization, they're still getting a bad quality. We don't know what they're putting into their body, and it's 10 times worse because of that. But the result of this consumption...
I'm just going to interrupt there to tell people that you did a remarkable thing down in Lisbon. You did you're a bit of an artist as well, and you did a thing called Casa das Drogas, where you made a bunch of artworks, which was constructed. Tell us about that.
Thanks for bringing it up, Stephen. Actually, I do like talking about that. It was a very, very fun time during lockdown, negotiating retail space on the luxury street under a jail, under a cop shop,
sure,
right next to Armani and Rolex, you know. And I just called the number.
You made a really valid point with the exhibition, and that's really, you know.
It was like all glass. I said, okay, can I have this space for a month, 2 months? Okay, fine. There's no one here. Here you go. Get it at a really cheap rate. So I was just becoming annoyed by all the questions. 8 o'clock in the morning, do you want heroin, hashish, marijuana? Sure. And I just started saying, yes, okay, I would like some. Please sell me some heroin. And I looked at what the 10-day supply was. So I just kept it under the 10-day supply all the time. 8 o'clock in the morning, buying heroin for the first time. The guy's like €350. And I'm like, but I know it's not heroin. I'll give you €5, you know? And he's just like, €5, no. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Like, this is not real. I know it's not real. And eventually, okay, €10 for, I don't know, a couple of grams or a gram or something. So, you know, I ran back to the apartment and I just stored it in the cupboard. Kind of came back a couple of days later. I said, okay, I should really start doing something with this. Mixed it with water, did like a kind of watercolor kind of base. And I started painting all different landmarks, castles up around Lisbon. And I did one with cocaine paste that I made with some cocaine powder that was actually like pharmaceutical pills crushed up. The heroin turned out to be cinnamon. So I called, like, some of the pieces was like Canelo de São Jorge. It's like Canela in Portuguese. LSD and a few different ones, and that was the point. Just have Casa das Drogas, a press statement that was explaining in Portuguese and in English what it is that this exhibition is about, to highlight the folly of prohibition, the folly of decriminalization. It hasn't resolved any issues regarding quality assured product and access to this. And some of the activists really liked it because they said, this is what the drug consumption room should look like. There should be artwork. We should be having a nice environment, not a medicalized environment of people wearing lab coats and giving you your medicine. Take that there now quick and get out. We're human, man. And the art is important with the activism. They go both hand in hand. I know you work very much in the cultural scene yourself with stand-up comedy and the gigs and the concerts. Like, that's how we get the message out there. So I just did like a pacifist, like, stood back, let people come in if they want, and we had good conversations. We had good bit of crack there as well. So,
well, I have to say, man, I take my hat. I tip the fedora to yourself. That was an amazing thing. But it points out to the people who are kind of wondering what Decrim is, and this conversation is going round. It's going round and round in our this assembly at the moment, and we still have illegal drugs. That's the point.
They're not going away, right, Stephen? They're here. Probably more all-time high use of it, all-time high supply of anything you want. You know, it's available on Instagram, on the internet, on Snapchat. These kids running around.
Yeah. So do you see it as having any place in sitting on top of Ireland, like this model? Yeah, the Decrim.
It seems to be getting a lot of resistance. And the resistance.
There's a fear. Let's say, I'll put it another way. So there's a kind of fear amongst, let's say, activists in the Irish scene that it's a low-hanging fruit for our politicians. So that it's like there'll be a recommendation for Decrim, and it'll have the 20 years of Portugal background, and it'll be a low-hanging fruit for our politicians to go, well, you know, there you go. And
don't try to over-politicize human rights. Like, it's there. The European Convention on Human Rights exists. We have a right to privacy. We have a right to freedom of association, freedom of expression. And when you try to control people's consciousness, whatever drug or substance it is that's involved, you're basically violating the European Convention on Human Rights. So I don't really care what the interpretation of Dáil Éireann is about my European rights. Like, this is already enshrined. We're a signatory of this treaty. So when it comes back to Ireland, like, I don't really agree that we should only focus on decriminalization, even though it might be the low-hanging fruit. I'm not trying to appease the masters here. This is not a slave-master dialect. Like, in very fact, we have individual rights. We are humans. We can make decisions, and we're not so dumb. Like, you can let us make free decisions, but like, they have no problem opening McDonald's in a children's hospital. They don't see the contradiction of diet and how substances are being fed to children and mothers with unborn children who are coming into the world, giving them a Big Mac as their first meal. But, illegal drugs, as an adult, forget about it. So I don't like to get into these kind of games, because it's really, it's not appropriate to be negotiating on rights that were given to us when we joined the EU, right? These are already there. We don't need to keep talking about them as if they don't exist.
I know, but we don't see them, Graham. Is my issue would be that people don't want to see them. They don't want to see them. It's like there are so many rights, but we've kind of largely forgotten about. But
good point. The state has become more and more involved in our life, right? It's become more involved in decisions and how they educate and how they they've never really had a good track record of this though, Stephen, right? Like it was either the church or replaced by the state, and both have failed Irish society. It's about time people in Ireland make best decisions for themselves and their families. And a quality assured product is the only way to get out of the hole that we're in, which is basically people taking anything that they're offered after a couple of drinks. That's the gateway drug. People will take anything at a party, and these are not regulated, like, and then they're blamed, oh, the consumer is to blame. Like, the consumer is not to blame because you didn't give them a choice. If there's regulated cocaine, they'll make a regulated cocaine decision and they'll find something in small quantity, not too pure, like they won't be going off their heads, but at least they'll know it comes from a legitimate source, a farmer or a union out in Colombia and Bolivia, who want to set up these. They want to position themselves as the world trade, but they can't because they have to do it illegally, because there's no country will buy Coca from them. The only two countries, Bolivia and Colombia, have removed Coca from their list of banned substances. There's no other country has done it. So and again, like in the US, they have legal cannabis, but they can't do interstate commerce. So you can't even trade cannabis between states. And in the EU, we have Germany, a little bit of Portugal, a little bit of Malta, say a bit of Spain, but you can't travel, you can't swap it, you can't trade it amongst the EU members. So there's like the whole thing needs to connect, and it needs to be a massive decision by the EU Parliament or someone to say regionally.
Well, to be honest, Graham, look at it's the EU Parliament who has that power, because they are legislating for 27 countries, and they do have the power. So to normalize things and get it to a situation where people have a regulation that everybody's using the same thing, and it's. I think that somehow, I find that there's so many cultural differences within these 27 countries.
True, yeah.
Everybody goes Holland. Holland's been there for how many years? 30 years. But Holland has never, ever actually really been embracing cannabis. They have a very visual situation in Amsterdam and places like that, but it's not really, I know people run coffee shops in Holland for 20 years. It's never been legal. It's never been weird. How do we get, they have no legality allowing them to transport cannabis from wherever the cannabis is grown to their shop. So it's never, ever been legal in Holland. And there's so many things that are just so wrong that there's no playing field that people can sit down. When are we ever going to reach a kind of regulation? And I think that the only people who really have that power is the EU to enforce it in a kind of medical way, or to get things,
give clarity.
And I mean, Malta is a really good case, because Malta's there, it's small, which means it's kind of really, it's clear to see what's happening. So and they have that came from a pain institute, that kind of a couple of doctors in a pain institute down in Malta that really pushed for their
Caritas. They were the kind of working on drug rehabilitation, and they went through the old ways of thinking that, drugs are bad, but then they got this training in the US. They learned about harm reduction. So all these psychologists, psychiatrists, for the first time, they're putting the human first, and they're seeing this isn't an addict, this is a person. This person has needs, and they have problems, and they have all sorts of stuff going on in their life that lead to them making these decisions. Maybe if we think about all those other stuff, resolve their homelessness, feed them, give them appropriate housing, access to clean water, sanitary conditions, the social circle, like we're bonding, we're social animal, right? That's what we do, we socialize, but we're very like labeled. I think Ireland has that opportunity.
Ireland has that opportunity because of its size. It's small, and we know our problems, and we look at we're loaded. I heard this phrase again: the country is awash with money. I can't believe that. I've always been in Spain for all these massive booms to bust that's been going on in Ireland.
A lot of money in Ireland, but people are being squeezed, a lot of money, but that doesn't account for inflation and hidden taxes that they charge us with the increase in price. Like here, the price of gasolina is 1.4, and I was in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, and it's like 1.99 or something. I just couldn't believe it. And it came down to 1.7. That's still mad. Like you're paying over the odds for the rest of Europe are not paying this.
Electricity. Now, in fairness, you have Spain, you have sol, you have sun, and so you've got a lot of solar power. But like electricity, water, these kinds of standard utility bills they've never been anywhere like anything. Like Ireland.
But Ireland just accepts it.
Yes,
it just takes it. We're the most expensive country for a lot of things, like medicines. compared to Spain and pharmacy over-the-counter drugs. You get them for half the price, a quarter of the price that you do back in Ireland.
Sure.
Even they came out and said Tesco was overpricing, or what did they say when they came to the country? Like Ireland was like a gold mine, because they knew they could increase the prices a lot higher than they could in the UK. And Irish people just go along with it. Like, we just so easy, we dispose of money as if money grows on trees, but it's not. We're a debt society. We owe that money to somebody, which creates inflation over time, and it creates printing of new money to try and, which liquidates everyone's assets, and it depreciates everyone. So if we're holding on to billions of euro in Ireland, that doesn't make us a wealthy country. It means we're hoarding cash as a government. And with cash, any businessman, any fund will tell you, you put that into operations, you use that money to make investments to come back in different ways, like land. Why aren't they buying up public land? Why aren't they putting it to use? Why aren't they having a public bank? Why don't they have a public airline? All of these are privatized. So we own nothing, but we're the richest country in Europe, by the way, but we own absolutely nothing that we stand on.
I've just finished a thing in Trinity in a innovation in like an innovation course, but with a specialization in healthcare. And that one of the modules, what I did is I had a deep dive into the costs of Cat Salute here in Spain, which is again another demographic comparison, because Catalonia which is where Barcelona is, by the way, people, is a nation of 7 million people. And so they have a competence within the Spanish health system. They have a competence for their own health, and they deliver that. And the price of that is, and it's amazing. You don't have to. I just did in this March 17th. I do MRIs a lot for my MS and stuff.
Yeah,
and
of course.
So my latest checkups were on Paddy's night. I did the MRI.
I saw the video.
Yeah, at 2 o'clock in the morning, man. I was inside an MRI machine. I don't know if you've ever been in, but the point is,
they're not comfortable, no.
But the point is that for me, it's get it done, because I need it, and I got my contrast. I got the whole thing. But the thing is, that would take another thing that people don't realize is within the Irish system. Once you get a disease, like, and I'm just one, there's a lot of people, a lot of different types of diseases and issues that people have. And once you have these kinds of things, you're instantly the minute you're diagnosed, you're instantly uninsurable. My brother is, he works for the VHI, but no nepotism will get me insured. But the point is that here, it means that you're instantly on the public system. So on the public system for MRIs, which is a little bit of a bugbear for me, because there's no reason. This is a diagnostic tool that should be available, and should be available as soon as possible to everybody. And here, it takes 18 months on the public system in Ireland for an MRI. And
that's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. It's really crazy. And I'm from Granard in Longford, so one of our kind of my nearest hospital would be Mullingar, and Mullingar, I'm part of an association, Longford MS. We gave money as part of a big fundraising that went on in that area to buy an MRI machine for Mullingar Hospital.
Wow.
And, we're raising money, and so the Irish are great at raising money, doing
the government's job,
doing every kind of fundraising thing. And then with the machine gets bought, and so the machine gets bought and given to the hospital. There you go. There's the MRI machine, and then the HSC goes, hold on a second. Who's gonna man the MRI machine? You're going, what? So they've nobody to staff it. So
that's nuts.
Yes, so you still have to go from and then what they do is they gather up, if you're stroke victims, all kinds of people need MRIs. It's the world's biggest.
It's just a test,
diagnostic tool. And so what they do now is they gather them up. This is the most insane thing. So they gather up a bunch of patients in the hospital.
Do it in one day.
Yeah, so there could be strokes, there could be blah blah blah. They all need an MRI, and then they have to put them in a taxi, not an ambulance if they can get it, but a taxi. A taxi if they can't, and put them in a taxi to go down to Tullamore where there's an MRI machine. So this is the insanity of this Irish health system.
Oh man, it's crazy.
So the Cat Salute I come out of the MRI machine at 5:30 in the morning, and I went on Paddy's night, and I went to your man. I said, "What's going on here? I mean, how does obviously it's a bigger country, Spain, that's kind of back in the Catalan. It's not a exclusively Catalan system. It's a bigger Spanish system that's behind it." But I said, "So what's going on here?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "We got four machines. They go around the clock, 24 hours a day.
Always on, yeah.
Yes, always on. There's people always, and there's people are staffing them, and the thing always working because they're using them for pregnancies. They're using them for everything.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And so,
the only thing powered in Ireland that's on all the time are data centers. It seems like your data is more important than your health. And that's the only thing being powered. And they say energy is being wasted in Ireland. The person has to cut down on energy use. But you're powering data centers. You're not even charging them from the ESB didn't even charge them, Facebook, for their energy last year. It was free. There was a surplus of it that was just given to them. And then a report came out and said, why did you give Facebook, the $1 trillion company stealing everyone's data? Why did you give them a free pass when you're charging the grandmothers, the grandparents, ESB through the roof for this winter? It's mad, like what the favoritism that's given and the lack of joint up thinking. Again, it's like our issue with asylum seekers. We put them into these hotels, we put them into these centers, and we don't give them a right to work, we don't give them a right to associate, we don't give them a right to go to third level education. And how is that a sustainable model? Like who picks up that bill? It's like they're the same people that own the hostels and that own the hotels that they're putting the people into, and they're charging them whatever they want per night. Right. Whereas you could just build public centers, you could build houses, you could give them the right to work, you could give them the right to go to college, but you won't. And it's like that. You're telling me they're giving taxis instead of building up an ambulance service or having hospitals or having more MRI machines.
We're moving into a very, very political space, but they're facts. So to bring it back to your drugs and your cannabis situation. So these are all kind of social issues that should pull together in the same
socialism. Direction. It means something different in Spain than in Ireland. Okay, like you're explaining a socialized healthcare medical system that works. Some people in Ireland will start going, "Oh, socialism, what's that?" Hold on, socialism has been the crux of Ireland. That's how we were able to have everything available to us up to this point. And it seems now we're kind of breaking away from that idea and becoming more like our American counterparts.
We still have things like the right to associate. We have our credit unions, which was built by John Hume, even in Northern Ireland, for all those very, very good reasons. And you're going, so we do have these rights, we just don't see them. That's my feeling.
Don't use them enough.
So the two things here, and I can grow my 5 plants and I can associate with other people that feel the same way as I do as adults. We're all, you can't be there's no social club that's has teens in there, which is the great fear of these psychotic teens. This is going on here for 30 years. Like they won the rights for social clubs to happen in Spain 30 years ago in Navarra, whereas now, and we've had there's been decades of it in Barcelona, over 200 clubs. And this I don't know if you've ever been to Barcelona, or if anybody out there has been to Barcelona lately. It's not falling apart. It's not, the streets are not full of teeming psychotic teens like we're led to believe by Bobby Smith and the Cannabis Risk Alliance and all these people. It's not the case. It's just not the case. And they've had social clubs here for 20 years, 200 of them across the city, and they're everywhere. They're out in the Canaries. They're across the entire span. They're out in the Balearics. They're everywhere. And so, but society is not falling apart. Ireland has nothing to fear. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was in a coffee shop in Amsterdam last year and, just minding my business, sitting out, having a joint. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, sorry, would you mind going in and buying me some weed?" He's like the teenager outside the off license. And I was like, "Well, why can't you just go yourself?" "Oh, I'm 17. I haven't turned 18 yet." I was like, "I'm sorry, man. Like, there's nothing I can do in this case. When are you turning 18? Like, "Oh, next month." I was like, "Man, it's going to be all available for you in just 1 more month. All you got to do is just wait it out." And no, I'm not going to go in and buy you. But it's like, that's a restriction put on the regulation, put on the coffee shops or the clubs. They need to have their ID. So it's the first thing if you're concerned about children, ask for the identification. But drug dealers don't ask for that. Snapchat and Instagram don't ask for that. They use it to manipulate young people.
This is regulation. So it's possible to regulate all these things, And that's it. So there's no excuse for that Ireland can't have a social club in every regional town. Let's say every county town could have a social club, and everybody who uses cannabis for the reasons that they use it, they're not, maybe not everybody might share the exact same reason, but everybody has the right. And in the end, and maybe we'll see it in our lifetimes. Do you think so?
Will we be going? Where will we be going? It in the bog still, or is that idea is kind of sailed now? I suppose indoors, probably greenhouses, fruits, vegetables, everything. Like it just tastes so much better from Spain.
Yes, but and that's a very real issue now with the kind of with our climate change scenario. That
okay, yeah. You didn't have much rain this year, right? There was a drought in Spain.
Tell you what, I don't know. Ireland, places like Ireland are going to be at the end of the supply chains, and I tell you what, olive oil man has gone crazy. Because they have no olive oil. All the olive oil, like Spain is I think it's the biggest exporter of olive oil in the world, and it's basically all comes from the Andalusia Jaén, and
didn't do too well this year, right?
Oh, really bad for 2 seasons. So I'm telling you, I can't, like, I never paid so much attention, but I'm in the Med now for so long, and my diet is Med, and so I do have a lot. I do eat a lot.
So you're eating well.
Yeah, well, it's a healthy diet, and it is recognized to be healthy. And I eat a lot less meat these days, and you know, there's a plant-based, a lot more plant-based. My wife is vegetarian, and
great,
it's where kind of I would call myself pescatarian. I love fish.
I love fish. Yeah, if I could just live on fish, I'd be happy with that. But we do have a lot of cows here as well, and they seem to have very happy lives, much better than humans. So I don't feel too bad about. But you know, they don't let them live along. Like in Spain, they let the cows go for 3-5 years. Here, they kill them after 10 months. So it's like there's a reason why meat tastes better, like your chorizo in Spain, because the pigs are fat, they're big, the chickens are big. You know, like this is a lost art. People are now just thinking about the margins. Let's get it, let's kill it, let's get it, let's harvest it.
Farming
intensive. It goes with the fruit, like the strawberries in Ireland this year. It's mad. They're green, man. They hadn't even ripened yet. You know, they don't have any flavor. They have no flavor on them. But strawberries, Wexford strawberries, we all know about. They're some of the best in the world, but they're not giving it the time and that they used to. Right, patience is a virtue, and
I'm big on this lately. I've spent an awful lot of time on the gut biome, and I want to make it part of my kind of Irish Canna clinic, because this is Irish. I think the Irish diet is appalling, and when you kind of have to step.
It's terrible, man. It's fast food.
Yes, fast
food. You go to Asia or you go to South America, and you see freshness, like you see real, like mushrooms and being grown and different herbs and different spices in India, man. I went to India in December.
We never got to Thailand, man. So I'm going to give you a quick 5 minutes on Thailand. You've experienced Thailand's legality, so tell us about that.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy flying out, having a layover in Singapore where they just executed a guy for having 0.5 kilo of cannabis, and then arriving in Thailand, being able to just get out of the plane, get onto the train, get out into Bangkok, into the city, take a walk, and just be surrounded by these shops, these retail shops selling Thai steak, selling hash, selling weed, cookies, selling weed brownies. And then, I mean, it was incredible having these edibles, you know, walking around, getting a nice like tom yum soup, you know, on the market for like $1, $2, right? The best shrimps are like tiger shrimps, massive things. Going for a massage in the Hyatt Hotel using cannabis oil was the base of their whole. This is the Hyatt 5-star hotel. I'm up at the top floor. And I'm just like, this is incredible. Like they really got lifestyle. They got the whole wellness thing. They've always been doing that in Thailand, right? Everyone knows Thailand to be that place. But now it's like, you don't have any paranoia or recluse about using cannabis. It's out in the open. It's not going away. The same government got elected again recently, like a month ago. So they were afraid, would that be reversed with the other party in opposition who disagree with it? Right. But no, politically, it's safe. You have the lads from Strain Hunters have gone out. They've opened a couple of shops now in Bangkok. And it's not just about the capital, though. It's obviously grown in other regions, right down the south and stuff. And like, I have a lot more to learn about Thailand, but my brief encounter with them earlier this year was this could actually be the best environment to consume, because they've just thought about everything. Like, your food is fresh, it's really cheap, it's really nice. You just have that wellness. It's just such a good, and the spirit of the Thai, like, there's such well-spirited people, very friendly, very
The
approachable.
reputation, man, the smile, what did they call it? The smiling.
Yeah, well, they do live up to it. Like, I felt really like the hospitality of that region was just fantastic. And it's the first Asian country to fully legalize and to recognize this. Now you have, like, say, the neighbors like Malaysia, you have India, you have, they're thinking about, okay, you have Pakistan, you have Afghanistan, you have Lebanon.
These places have history. You know,
the history. This is where cannabis came from.
And all the land race is becoming a bigger thing all the time now. So we're kind of going back to these original strains.
I would take like landrace, Indian hash, Nepalese hash over the American industry every single day. And nothing to down on the American industry. It's fantastic, some of the innovations, but really the technology was invented in Southeast Asia and along the route of the Silk Road. It travels, these ideas of hash, of Buddhism, of spirituality, and all these different things. They didn't come from the West. The West are selling it, they're capitalizing on it now, they're making shit tons of money. But really the traditional techniques, hand rubbing hash and up in the mountains in the Himalayas, that's an experience. That's a spiritual experience. You're going up there hiking for 2 days, and you're getting your first smoke on a chillum with some lads. You know, it blows your mind, and it gives you a totally new appreciation for cannabis. Like, you don't need to take it all the time and stuff. You want to have it as a reward after you've done a bunch of stuff, or after you've socialized with people. You meet up and you go rock climbing, or you meet up, you go kayaking, and then you take cannabis around that. You don't just go to the pub and drink. You don't just go to meet up to consume. You have all these activities surrounding the culture of it and the expression of it and what it just means for art, for spiritualism, how people express religiously. I mean, it's all rooted around the ganja, the plant. Shiva introduced this plant hundreds of thousands of years ago. That's what the Indians believe. And he's the god of destruction, the god of chaos. But you gotta respect him. You gotta understand it. Like, this drug is here, and you respect it, or it's not going to respect you.
You had your bang; they consumed it in liquids, and we're up to our necks in this. By the way, the Irish, we had a what's his name from Limerick, the guy who was he was out in India, and he was he's the guy that put cannabis on the pharmacopoeia.
William O'Shaughnessy.
William O'Shaughnessy. There you go. So he was medicating the Queen. What was her name? The Queen?
Victoria I, I think, at the time. Was using it for menopause or other reasons like that. And
menstrual, I think, but she didn't like
menstrual, right? Which is a great application, right? Women get out and use cannabis. You know, it's there, it's available. And like, he used it on convulsions for children, which we now understand to be the whole epilepsy scene and what it's doing there and stuff. So we have it there in the pharmacopoeia, and then it just got lost for a couple of decades, a few decades, and now it's kind of coming back again.
It's the demonizing that has been the biggest issue. The demonizing has to stop. It's kind of, we're finally in the last kind of decades.
We're catching up from where we should have been the whole time. And a lot of revolutions happened, a lot of independence. There's a lot of reasons why they demonized and they separated themselves from these traditional plants out in India, to Mexico, different parts of South America and stuff, because it was a political divide. But now we're realizing, with the invention of technology, of internet, we're actually just one. We're experiencing this together. We're able to know what's going on in Germany, in Malta, and Thailand. We just get on a flight and we're instantly, immediately there within 12 hours. These aren't, the world is becoming much smaller all of a sudden, and these ideas, they're spreading like wildfire.
Even your Spanish club is here 2 hours away. It's 2 hours away from anywhere
like, flights are just really cheap, right? Like, I mean,
but the point is that I mean, I was talking with the lads yesterday, Albertillo and the guys from Luz Verde.
Wow, tell me about that.
Political party. We'll have, that's another conversation. I'm just looking at the clock. I've gone over. We've hit an hour, man. You know, that's amazing. But it's been brilliant. And that's why you're on a call, because you're an incredibly insightful guy, and you have these experiences that are coming up in this Irish kind of debate at the moment. Portugal. Legalization, and people don't have real experience of that, and I'm kind of thinking that a lot of every one of the weekends of this assembly has a theme. There's a theme for what happened, whether it's lived experience, whether it's this, whether it's that, but it does get a little bit lost, and you kind of feel that there are too many there's too many kind of agendas, not agendas, but like you can't say it's an agenda to be, you know, people look at making arguments for inner city against and the fact that we have a cocaine epidemic and all these kinds of issues. But the thing is that what I like about it is, like you said, that what Luke did is people put themselves out there and
they're doing it to themselves. Like, it's embarrassing. They're going up there and they're conceding own goals. If this was a football game, and we're stepping back, actually at this point, it's kind of not automated. There's a lot of pressure. Again, we need to get our ducks in a row. We need to understand what it is we're asking for. In the US, they were very strong on descheduling. And when they demanded descheduling, they resulted in rescheduling down 2 schedules, which if they weren't asking for descheduling, they wouldn't have rescheduled anything. So at least they got something out of demanding for a lot more. I think the activists in Ireland should just be patient. This is a long game. Look after your health. We don't want people burning out, because people come, they go, and we need consistency in our messaging, right? We need what you guys are doing in Spain. We need to understand the rest of the world and get out a bit of Ireland. Like, Ireland is a place to survive on an island. You have to get out of the island sometimes and experience the rest of the world. And that, for me, I've just been kind of privileged to be able to go on tour the last couple of years now and just really take it all in, back to the basics. Like, where did this come from? What is this plant for these people? What is it for us? What is it for? And next week now I'm going out to New York State. I'm staying in Manhattan, New York, and I'm going to see for the first time since I was last there. It was more like party events were big, and they'd import Cali packs and they'd be selling the Cali pack. And I'd be like, why are you flying 8 hours, which is the distance from New York to California? It's like the distance from Ireland to Russia. Why are you flying to the other side of the continent when you can you've massive parts of not Martha's Vineyard, that's in California, sorry, but you have Vermont and all these other wine regions up around North New York State. Use these places, tap into this. And now finally,
that's happening.
It's happening. I think farmers are sitting on like 6 billion worth of cannabis. They're waiting for the stores to get licenses. I don't understand fully yet what's happening. I'm going to have to go out next week and report on that when I'm there. So I do little videos so people can check them out on my Casa das Drogas YouTube if they want. You know, it's there.
Well, there you go. So that's it. Casa das Drogas, spelled CASADOS. What's the DOS?
DAS. Das.
Okay, das
Drogas. And Casa, man, it's all about the home, you know. Again, this is like a central point of the family. It's a central point of our life. It's where we should feel safe. And your casa, your house, is where you should be the ruler. You should be the elite. You should be the Dáil TD of your own casa. If you don't have that, you don't really have much. And I think just don't be selling it. Just go. If you grow your own, you be quiet. If you want to be sharing it with some people, do. But the last thing that we want for us to follow the US and be doing these packs and having fancy marketing. Cannabis can be sold in a brown paper bag like tea is in India. We don't need to be investing in marketing for a product that's just going to bring attention, shut you down, and now there's no access in your community. So just be calm about it. Just be casual about it, lads. You know, it's still illegal.
We're in a position, I think, which is we can cherry pick the best of these different situations of legislations around the place that are living up and running. So we can do.
We have a choice. We can either go private, make it like the UK or America where it's very expensive, or we can go like Spain or Uruguay and say, well, actually, this is really only worth the amount of time and effort that's gone into growing it, which, like any other product or any other agricultural product, we put that as whatever it is, a few euro here and there for different stuff. It's not like, okay, the consumer, the cultivator is taking a huge risk, but we distribute that risk. If we're all only growing a couple of plants and then just sharing that's the collective, that's the bit of a social club, how it comes together. And that's what a social club is, sharing information. What did you put into your strain? What did you put into you're not selling it. You're just sharing it in an environment that's social, that's safe,
you know,
giving information.
And it's about the effects as well, and understanding what strains are this. And a lot of the time, there's too much. It's complex, no doubt. Like, it's a plant, and it's a plant medicine, and it is complex. The endocannabinoid system is something to learn about, but it's an enjoyable thing to learn about. And and then you get to understand as well. I have a strain that took what I did here, what the social clubs, and just to wrap it up for me. So the social clubs in Spain, what it offered me was the ability to go out and check, I want to try this with these terps, a strain with these terps, and you get to know what each one, and you get to know the effects of each one and how it affects my ability to control my neuropathic pain and help me sleep at night, which are my two biggest issues. Yes,
What would you
absolutely.
say would be the best strains for you right now at this moment for reducing spasticity, allowing you to sleep and have appetite, all the rest of it? What do you like?
Yeah, well, I like there are a lot of the blue strains. I'm a blueberry
Oh,
man. I'm a blueberry
yeah.
berry, and yes, and for sure, and it's kind of, and that's what I grow now. And I've got my season of grow. I'm basically curing at the moment, which is that burping thing that you do. But it's wonderful to understand that you've grown the plant. I control all the inputs. Everything is clean and natural fertilizers and all of that kind of stuff. And I end up with a medicine that does exactly the things that I require for my different symptoms. I still have neuropathic pain in my lower legs and stuff like that, and sleeping at night is an issue. But that's it. So that's strain. And I have nothing else. I don't take anything else. I have no other drug I'm taking.
And that's
So look,
it. You're just asking for what works, what helps you. You're asking for your
yeah.
medicine. You're not asking for much more, man. It's not a big request,
But
is it?
it was a process of elimination. You had to have the liberty. You had to have the liberty
right.
to be able to try. And so you're going through. So a club had all its different strains, and so I would go, okay, well that one's got linalool. That one's got what's in that one. What's in that one? Where's the terps in that one?
Yeah.
And you're looking at all the different components. And I did that for 2 years, 3 years, where I kind of going, I'm going, that's the one.
It's a process. Yeah, it takes time. It does.
And then you're able to grow it, and you go, wow, how about that? So. I've taken an hour of your time, man. So look, we leave it at that.
That's
and
okay.
I want to thank you again, Graham. You're an enlightening guy. I'm glad that you're going to New York.
Thanks, Stephen.
And I'm glad you're coming back to Ireland, that you'll still be around the Irish scene.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll be back in Ireland and hopefully
enlightening us, because that's what it's about, man. We need to, like you said before, we have to get off the island to have a look at what's working there and what's working there.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe that's Ireland's opportunity, is to cherry pick the model that we want. And the one that works.
You're making me blush now, but like, shout out to SSDP. If there's any events on, go check them out in your local university and college.
Sure.
Hopefully there's going to be some more stuff happening during the winter and stuff. It's not just going to be summer season, but like, a lot of lectures or like different events and stuff. So please do check them out. Yeah.
And I've got plans to create a few artists. I'm going to get more artists on this over the next few weeks. And look, it's been great. I've got my first artist to kick off that thread.
Yeah, well, while we make in Ireland, I don't know, maybe poutine. We'll make something out of poutine, will we?
Well, no, I think there's a place in Ireland for Cali sober. I've been looking at Cali sober. Yeah, because I think we're 3 people a day dying in Ireland from booze, and you're going, there is an issue. There are issues with different drugs, so it's difficult to look at anything in the round. You have to.
Have you listened to that Willie Nelson California Sober song? He's 93 years old and he's still kicking, man.
There you go.
So
it's like that's what. And there's a lot of stuff around this culture. Look, I'm going to go. We've got to go, man. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Stephen. We look forward to the Canna Fringe when it happens next year. We'll be there. We'll support it. Yeah,
and we kick off with something that you will be part of, I hope, which will be the commemoration of Howard Marks, which is April the 10th every year, and we're going to try and make something that will be a kind of permanent fixture with Johnny and a few different people.
Yeah, great, man. I can't wait to see you guys again. To be honest, it's just been kind of lonely not being in Ireland, but you can understand it's hard to keep in contact as well when you're kind of not.